Hello, Husker fans. Welcome to the Husker Football Fan Podcast. In today's episode, we are joined by Matt Wenzel to preview this fall's matchup between the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Michigan State Spartans.
We are here with Matt Wenzel. Matt covers Michigan State football for MLive. Matt, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
So let's talk about Michigan State in the recent past. With the exception of a couple years since Nebraska has joined the Big 12, Michigan State has been a football power. I mean, a couple of Big 10 titles, college football playoff appearance. How has D'Antonio kept this program humming, and can he continue to do it moving forward?
A lot of it's just, consistency. You look at the staff that he brought together, and he still has, multiple guys on his staff that started with him in 2007. They lost two guys in the offseason, one of them being his co-D coordinator, Harlan Burnett, but really his continuity has been really, I think, a key part of it. You look at the 2016 season when they went 3-9, and right after that game, the final game of the season, they get blown out at Penn State. D'Antonio was adamant, I'm not changing my coaching staff, which some people question, and, which you could justify in questioning, and then, they turn around and go 10-3 with the same staff the following year. So I think a lot of it's to do with consistency and a lot of it to do with developing talent. Michigan State is not going to recruit on a level with Alabama, or Georgia, or Ohio State. The key is identifying talent, recruiting, finding guys that they know that they can get that fit their system and that they believe in, and turning guys that are 3-star guys, 2-star guys into productive college players, some of them All-Americans and eventual NFL players. So I think that's been the key, and just maintaining that consistent approach has obviously served them well.
So two interesting seasons consecutively, both kind of surprising. First the 3-9 debacle, and then what were you guys last year? 10-3. 10-3. How do you explain that?
It's there are a lot of things. I think. I think I don't think the 2016 team was that bad. I think that that was probably more like a 6-win team. Obviously, a fall from a college playoff team, but they had leads in every game. Some of them ended up being blowouts, but there were games they should have won, and probably would have won in other years. I think they had some chemistry issues, some leadership issues. I think you had a case where you had some leaders, some captains on your team who were not being productive on the field. And when you have guys like that telling the younger guys what to do and how they should do things, and maybe the younger guys don't respond when they say, who are you to say this? I saw how you played last week. I think part of that was into it. And then last year was just, they got a lot of young guys on the right page doing good things. They played 13 true freshmen last year, which is most ever during Mark D'Antonio's tenure. They were one of the youngest teams in the nation, and they had a lot of guys that stepped right up and, career years across the board from a lot of guys. Consistent quarterback play obviously is huge. They struggled mightily at quarterback in 2016. They used 3 different guys. They had injuries too, but none of them were really effective. And then last year, Brian Lewerke steps in, and he becomes, obviously a very talented, dual-threat guy, and one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten moving forward. So all that kind of feeds into being 2017 being a complete flip.
Gotcha. So now you've got this, for moving forward to 2018, you've got all this talent that has played and it has experience. So with kind of spring practice behind us and fall right around the corner, what are some of the key storylines you're writing about these days?
It's pretty much the opposite of last year. Last year, going into the fall, it was pretty much who the hell are they going to play at pretty much every position. This year, it's they return 19 starters. There aren't that many question marks. I think some of the key things will be they need to replace one starting D-end, a starting outside linebacker, and their starting center. The center being the biggest question mark was Brian Allen, get picked in the 4th round of the draft. He was a 3-year starter, captain, so that's a tough loss. There'll probably be his younger brother, Matt Allen, will be front runner to take over there. I think some of the bigger questions are, just looking at the roster, more depth Beyond the Worky, they don't have a single quarterback who's taken a snap for the Spartans. LJ Scott's a talented runner. Beyond they graduated one guy, grad transferred another guy, and beyond that, Connor Hayward is a sophomore who had 3 carries last year. He's the only other one who's carried the ball for them. So I think it's nitpicking compared to last year. Last year was trying to figure out who was going to play anywhere and whether these guys were going to be any good. They were starting. They opened last year starting 2 former walk-ons at the end, and people were basically laughing. One of them turned into being a third-team All Big Ten player in Kenny Willeke. So this year is pretty much the opposite. I think maybe the bigger storyline is just what's the next step after last year? Is this going to be a team that's going to hang around the same area, or are they going to be are they going to win are they going to really contend for a Big Ten title?
The last time Nebraska saw Michigan State, it was kind of a wild game. Did you have an opinion on whether or not the wide receiver was pushed out of bounds?
Oh man, I remember watching that. That's I can't drag up the.
Brayden Riley, that's who it was.
I can't. I don't remember thinking that it was for sure a push out of bounds, but whatever. That was a wild game. Obviously, it cost Michigan. It was a shock for Michigan State, but they turned it around and still won a Big Ten title. If my memory serves me right, that was the 2015 year, right?
Right, the college football playoff year. Yeah, that was maybe a high point for Nebraska under the Mike Riley era because it was a big upset, and we thought, well, there's more of this to come, but nope. Turns out it wasn't. So, man, I'm looking at Bill Connolly's overview of Michigan State, and he has the defensive ranked as the number 3 defense in the country. Does that sound right?
Well, I would say the run defense is definitely up there. Run D, they were number 2 in the nation last year. Huge improvement from last year. Their pass rush needs to get better. And their secondary is loaded with guys with experience, but I think they were in the, let's say, 30 or so, in the 30s in total in passing yards allowed per game last year. I think they were young, so they're still young at corner. They started a true freshman and a sophomore last year at corner. Before all new starters, full-time guys in the secondary. So I think the secondary is not up. It's not quite at the same level proven yet as the run D was last year. But defensively, yeah, they should be really good. The defense is what won them games last year. I can't remember it off the top of the head, but the number of single-digit point game victories they had, especially in Big Ten play. I mean, when you're only averaging 24 or 0.5 or whatever it is points per game, and you win 10 games, your defense is doing heavy lifting.
Yeah. So Matt, who are some key returning starters, and also maybe an emerging starter on either side of the ball?
You really got to start a quarterback because obviously you're not going to do much in football without a good one. Brian Lewerke obviously showed himself to be that last year. This guy who had more than 2,500 yards of total offense. He ran more than 500 yards. He was second on the team in rushing. He needs to improve his efficiency in passing, I think. He's at 59%, but I think after Trace McSorley, I don't think there's another quarterback in the Big Ten I would take over him at this point in time. So high ceiling for him. LJ Scott, they need to improve the running game. LJ Scott was one of the top running back recruits in the country, and he came in and he was good, but he still hasn't seemed like he's reached the potential. He could have left for the NFL. Came back for his senior year. Key guys, Joe Bocci came out of the blue. He played 6 games as a true freshman after he got ejected, and then last year as a sophomore was named the starting middle linebacker with very little experience before that, and then he had a hell of a year. Kenny Willekes, the D-end I mentioned earlier, the guy, former walk-on, he became an all Big Ten third-team guy last year and improved their pass rush from, I think, 11 sacks. It's some terrible number they had in 2016 to 28 last year. I think he had 7. So there's some key guys. I mean, I can go on and on, but those are among their couple of guys on each side of the ball to watch.
Cool. So we've talked about the seesawing seasons the last couple of years. What do you think Michigan State fans should realistically expect for this fall?
Expect to contend for a Big Ten title. Expect to be in every game. I think those are reasonable expectations for a team that won 10 games last year, that returns 19 starters, and considering that they were young last year. So, I mean, you win 10 games, you return 19 guys, a lot of some whom are playing, getting their first year of experience, really playing. You have a coach who's won 3 Big Ten titles, who knows what he's doing, obviously. Fans should expect them to contend for a Big Ten title. Now, the trick is that you're playing in the Big Ten East, so good luck along with everybody else to try and beat Ohio State. I think I'm not saying they're going to go 12-0 by any stretch. I think a 9-3, 10-2 or so, is probably reasonable. What I would guess. I mean, you get Ohio State and Michigan at home, but both those teams should be good, especially if Michigan finds a quarterback that can throw the ball. And then you get Penn State on the road. That's a tricky one. So, I mean, those are the 3 toughest games on their schedule. Winning all 3 would be rather remarkable. Losing 2 of them would not be a surprise, just because the caliber of football in the Big Ten East is obviously really good.
Speaking of the caliber of football in the Big Ten East, when we went from legends and leaders to East and West, I was really bummed that Michigan State got stuck in the East and we ended up with Purdue. I felt like there was a really great budding rivalry between Michigan State and Nebraska. I don't know. Do Michigan State fans feel anything like that? Is there any wish that you guys were in the West?
I mean, I remember, as just a football fan in general, I remember being interested when Nebraska joined the Big Ten. Certainly, a whole lot more from a football standpoint than Rutgers or Maryland. Obviously, Nebraska hasn't had great years recently, and obviously they're looking to change that with Scott Frost. But I mean, I think I'm sure Michigan State fans would rather see, if you're asking who they want to see come to Spartan Stadium every other year, is it Nebraska or Maryland? Is it Nebraska or Rutgers? Is it Nebraska obviously Nebraska would be higher on the list than a lot of teams in the Big Ten, than other teams in the Big Ten. But I mean, the trick is just in the divisions. I mean, if they're not going to move Michigan State to the West if they can't keep the rivalry with Michigan, I don't see them solving that issue.
Unfortunately, they can make it a protective crossover and.
Well, yeah, but if they're not going to do that, if I remember right, when they went to East and West, maybe I'm remembering this wrong because this is 4 years ago or however long ago.
Something like that. Yeah.
But I thought when they did that, Michigan State wanted to keep the rivalry with Michigan, and they wouldn't make that happen. Yeah. I can't remember now, but either way, I think that would be a breaking point. I don't think they would ever get rid of that.
Gotcha.
But obviously, for the rest of the conference, it would look a lot. It would make it a little more balanced, because the Big Ten East, as it is right now, is just ridiculous. You got 4 top-heavy teams, programs, and then you've got Wisconsin basically dominating the West over there.
Well, we're hoping to change that soon.
So Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. That's 4 tough teams to have in one division. So.
Yeah. Well, Matt, it's been great talking to you and hearing your thoughts on Michigan State football. And where can our listeners find the content that you are putting out about Michigan State?
mlive.com/Spartans will be the page with just Michigan State stuff on it, and they can find it there. And thanks for having me on. I look forward to being out in Nebraska this November. Hopefully the weather's not too terrible at that point.
Second to last game of the year. It could be.
Yeah. Well, keep making a noon game, and that'll be a little bit better. So that would be fine with me.
We shall see. It'll be fun. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Justin. Have a good day.
Thanks again to Mr. Wenzel for joining us on the podcast. As always, you can find us on the web at huskerpod.com or follow us on Twitter at huskerpod. Go Big Red! The Husker Football Fan Podcast is an unofficial, non-commercial podcast and is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed on this podcast belong solely to the individuals expressing them. The Husker Football Fan Podcast is not endorsed by or affiliated with the Nebraska Cornhuskers or the University of Nebraska.